Ladies, gentlemen and all variations thereupon, I have a very bad cold, but that's not going to stop me uploading the video this week, and this week we're going to be making this fluffy cloud lampshade, which you've probably seen other people make before, but I want one, so I'm going to make one, I'm going to film it and I'm going to make a video about it. The difference between what I'm making and what most people have made is that whilst most people do something they buy in the store as the actual shade, I'm going to make it almost entirely out of recycled materials. There are parts of it that aren't recycled, like the light bulb, but they're just things that are going to be around the house anyway. So I'm going to make something that's in my style of using recycled crap. Now this is an incredibly simple build. Anyone can build it except Canadians. If you're from Canada, no. But the reason I've been standing here and talking in this long-winded way, I know my intros are normally long-winded, but I want to prove something to you. You see, whilst anyone can build the project except Canadians, it won't necessarily work safely on every single type of light. You see, the old-fashioned lights, anyone who's ever handled them when you're changing the bulb or anything, know that the bulb gets very hot very quickly. Once upon a time, lights were less a means of creating light as a means of creating light as a byproduct and just generating a lot of heat. If, however, you have high efficiency LED lights, like I have, then they stay cool. That's just slightly warmer than the surrounding temperatures, and that's been on for probably about an hour. So unless you have something like this, which runs on, it's 8.8 watts of power going through that to create that light, that sort of range, you're fine. If it's a 60 watt light bulb, do not put this lampshade around it because fire hazard. And the principal part of this build is going to be a milk bottle, which is why Canadians can't do it, because their milk comes in bags. So the first thing you've got to do, even before you start the build, is to drink the milk. And make sure you wash out the inside. I'm just kidding, because obviously I've already washed this out after I finished it with antibacterial soap, and then again before I started recording to make sure everything's out of there, so you don't smell. First step is going to be to obviously get rid of any labels and things. So 2 milk jugs, and the reason we're using milk jugs is primarily because of the shape. So they get narrower towards this end. I'm going to cut the handle off as the first part of the cut. There we are. Cut the handle off, level out the other end. And as you can see, then we get a tapering effect, so it's wider at the top and narrower down the other end. And I'm going to also take off the lid, because that's going to create a dark patch. Now, something I don't normally get to do is film the same thing that I've just done again from a second angle, because I've got a second bottle. Now the next step is to obviously try and form them together into one cloud body. So I'm going to cut them on each one in the same place so that they will then fit together evenly. So let's move on to do that. And there, so those 2 bits will fit together. There are a few things we've got to put in now. Now we need to cut out a hole across the top of these 2, such that there's space for the bulb to go through, and the bulb is just going to take the weight of this, because it's not going to be very heavy. It can just sit there. This is going to be incredibly light. Now my bulb has a 11.5 centimetre circumference around the outside, so I'm going to cut it so it's 5.5 centimetres circumference on each side. And with that done, what we need to do is make sure that they hinge up and close in this direction, so that we can open it up, change the bulb, and then reattach. And the way we're going to do that, quite simply, we're just going to take some tape and just put a tape line across the bottom so that it forms the hinge. Now depending on how recently you wash this, you may have water to contend with on the inside, which I do. So we're going to apply the tape to the outside so that the water doesn't interfere with it. So Now because this tape is slightly opaque and we've got some open areas on the side of our lampshade which will create bright spots, we're going to use this tape to cover up those bright spots. If you don't have opaque tape or slightly opaque tape as I do, then just use a scrap plastic that you've already cut off, cut little circles out and tape those over. Now of course you may notice the problem that we have with this at the moment in that it's all floppy and we needed it to stay shut together in order to get it around the lamp, and ideally so that we can apply the outside to it. And the way I'm going to do that is with safety clip pins, but you can do it just putting more tape over the top in order to hold it shut, but you'd have to take off the tape and reapply it each time you change the bulb or when you put it on in the first place. So what I'm going to do is just take the safety pins, line up the milk bottles where I want them, and just pierce the surface with the safety pin, and that'll hold the two halves together just while we're applying the outside, and when we're hinging it on, just undo the safety pins, clamp it around, pin it back on. And for the outside, in order to make it look like a cloud, we're going to use some balls of cotton wool. You can use sheets, but ideally you want a variation in the density of the cotton wool. So if you're using sheets, you may want to break it apart a little bit. Now there's two ways of applying the cotton wool to the outside. Both ways involve using a hot glue gun, and the smooth brain method is to take your pieces of cotton wool, put some hot glue on them, and then putting them onto the lampshade. The more intelligent, wrinkly brain method is to put the glue onto the lampshade and then smush that onto your cotton wool, because A, it's quicker, and B, you're less likely to burn your hand when you're putting the glue on the cotton wool. So just pour out your cotton wool, spread it out on the table or the surface that you're working on, apply the hot glue and then smush. And ideally what you want is to have a uneven surface with areas of greater density and lesser density, because that gives a better cloud effect. Now a quick word on the materials being used here. I'm using cotton wool because it's a natural product, but cotton has its environmental impacts as well. It uses up a lot of fresh water, and depending on where you live, it's going to need to be imported, probably. It definitely is for me. The alternative, however, is going to be something that's plastic. So it's up to you whether you want to buy plastics or use cotton wool. I'm using cotton wool because I was using it for other projects and just had a lot left over. But if you prefer to use a synthetic variety, it's up to you. It's whether you prefer to save the water or not use the plastic. As to which is better, you know, the jury's out. It depends on what you value more, where your ethics lies. So I'm using cotton wool, no shame in using a plastic synthetic alternative. Now I'm going to cut all the footage of me struggling to put that up, because let's face it, it's a two-man job to hold something together and fasten it and things, especially when you're standing on a chair trying to lean up. Oh, but it's up there now, and if I turn the light on, I think it turned out quite well. I have to admit there was a short time when I thought, this is going to turn out quite badly. I might not upload this video, but seeing the end result, it looks quite good. So there we have it, a recycled materials cloud lampshade.